I've mentioned on the show before that when I was late teens and early 20s, while I was going to school, I also worked as a diesel tractor and trailer mechanic for a company that hauled mostly steel, but some other stuff too. It was a situation where a friend's family owned the business. His dad kind of ran the office area, and his uncle ran the shop. So the person that I, sort of looked at as my, I guess he was my boss, was my buddy's uncle. They mostly brought us in originally just to fix some stuff around the yard, do some landscaping. But the more I was there, the more I kind of got involved in stuff in the shop. Aside from that, though, he also, this guy, my boss, would also have us go and do some work at his house. Move some stuff around, fix a thing over here, kind of like light renovation type of work, and painting. So I remember he had gotten this duplex with old hardwood floors. He wanted us to go and paint the walls. And he, the thing about him, he just generally speaking, everything he had was in some state of disarray, right? All of his tools, they were always broken, and he could be kind of cheap sometimes, so he wouldn't really get you the materials you needed half of the time, but whatever. It was just, we were learning how to do this stuff. So he has to go paint the walls, right? And he left us, a couple buckets of paint, just white paint, and then a tarp to put down. But it wasn't a cloth tarp. It was a plastic tarp, a clear plastic, 3 or 5 ply kind of tarp. So we put this thing down, and what happened here was that we were painting and things were going fine. There were some drips and stuff onto the tarp, and we thought that was fine. It was me and my buddy who were here doing this. And then what happened was, because A, the tarp was plastic, and B, it was see-through, it sort of became hard to tell which side of the tarp the paint drips were on. So what happened through the course of this painting extravaganza was that a lot of, long story short, a lot of white paint got onto his dark hardwood floors. And looking back, after another 20 plus years of painting rooms and doing renovations and things, I will say a lot of paint got on those floors. This was not a little bit, right? Now, working for this guy at the shop, he would get aggravated about things. Maybe if they weren't done right or weren't done quick enough, or he thought, we were screwing around or whatever. But over at his house, after all this, he didn't get angry about it. And looking back, I'm kind of surprised. It became something of a running joke, because then in the future, he would have us go, and he had a duplex that he lived in with some neighbors downstairs, and then he also had another property that he rented out, so he kind of did some rental stuff. And he would have us go and, do some painting and stuff there when they were transitioning tenants or whatever. And the joke would always be, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna have you go over to my other property. You can go and paint the floors." Right? It became a running joke. Anytime he wanted us to go do some work at his house, he'd tell us we were going to go paint the floors. He was one of, several mentors that I had along the way. When I think about a mentor, what I think about is typically someone who you probably aren't related to. In other words, and not that it matters, it's just, they don't have to take you under their wing. They kind of choose to, or it develops organically. They teach you some stuff along the way. It's a little different than a boss relationship. I've seen this in several times where someone who is a boss of some sort becomes a mentor to someone, myself included. So the relationship can develop in that way, but it's a different type of relationship than just some sort of work-based reporting relationship. But it's, they teach you, kind of bring you along, offer advice. It's somewhere between like a, it's almost somewhere between like a boss relationship and a friendship relationship in my mind, I suppose. Like it has elements of both sometimes. Presumably a mentor has some experience to share, but does it in a way that's almost more akin to a peer or friendship relationship. I have found it with good mentor relationships. Anyway, however you end up defining it for yourself, but those mentors along the way, and I had several, and they fill in almost parts of your life that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise, is what I have found. You know, this guy, for instance, you know, I grew up in a household, my parents weren't particularly savvy with tools or fixing things or renovations or cars or mechanics or anything like that, right? So by the time I got done high school, I had a bit of a gap there. Like I knew maybe a little bit about fixing some stuff, but like not much. And so taking this job at a trucking yard and having this friend's uncle who kind of helped me learn some things along the way, it's a wonder he ever put up with me at all. I mean, I think the first time he asked me to go get him a wrench, I brought him a pair of pliers or something, you know. I mean, I didn't know. But that's been a big piece of my life ever since and I always liked that stuff. I just never had anyone that really sat me down and taught me, right? So ever since then, like because of this person, I have been able to fix a lot of stuff around my various houses, do certain amount of renovation work. I can work on cars, work on trucks, work on, you know, lawnmowers. He used to have me fix his boats. You know, learning my way around tools and fixing things and some mechanic work. And those sorts of things came from him. And it's because he had the patience to let me go paint his floors. And I think that's the piece that I want to get across here is having a mentor is a wonderful thing. And if you ever get a chance to be a mentor, what you're buying into as a mentor, I think, is patience. I mean, you need to be patient because you are buying into allowing someone to kind of mess your shit up for a while, for lack of a better phrase. Every good mentoring experience that I've been through where I've been the mentee, those mentors that were good were exceptionally patient and allowed this special balance of room for messing up and room for error while also providing a certain degree of a safety net. It's not like he sent me off to paint someone else's house. He sent me off to paint his house. So baked in there is both room to mess up because of his patience, but a safety net because it's his, not someone else's, right? If I'd had a paying gig to go paint someone else's house and then painted the floors instead, that probably wouldn't have gone over so well. But because it was his house, and because we never sat down and said, "Oh, I'm your mentor now," or something, but that relationship had developed. People need family, and people need friends throughout their life. But if you get a chance to either be a mentor or if you've a chance to have a great mentor, it fills in certain gaps that I think both friendships and family miss. It can help fill in gaps and holes in your world and in your worldview and in your life and in your experience that maybe you might miss out on otherwise. And if you ever get a chance to mentor someone, and it's almost like one of those things, like when you know, like, I'm not a big believer in that whole, like, you sit down for like almost a business style meeting and say like, I am your mentor now. Okay. I am your mentee, right? Like that seems very robotic and forced. The good ones I've always had have developed organically and naturally, but those things they've always held a special status to me. And I know that I wouldn't be the same person without having had those mentors over time. And so if you have the ability to become one of these people to someone, just remember patience is probably the most important thing that you can bring to that table. You need to invite someone into your world and allow them to mess it up for a while and have the patience to see through that. Because you know, you might end up being one of a handful of the most important people that have ever come to pass through that person's life.